Second miss, this jade was passed down by the old matriarch, you cannot. Su Weiping's voice cut off mid-sentence. I loosened my fingers, and the mutton-fat white jade fell onto the bluestone ground with a crisp snap, shattering into 3 pieces. The entire Shou'an Hall fell silent. Liu Yuyao was holding up her wine cup, the amber liquid shimmering slightly within. She didn't drink. Instead, she turned her face to look at me, the wings of the kingfisher feather butterfly hairpin in her hair trembling faintly. Liu Huaijin sat in the seat of honor, his teacup resting untouched by his hand, as the vertical furrow between his brows slowly deepened. Yaohua. He uttered only her name, his tone flat and uninflected. I knelt down to pick up the shattered jade piece by piece. The edges were sharp, slicing a gash into my fingertip, and beads of blood seeped out, staining the fractured surface of the jade. The people surrounding me covered their noses and mouths, whispering amongst themselves. To dare smash a family heirloom. What has gotten into the second daughter? If the old matriarch finds out about this, there will be hell to pay. I gathered the jade fragments into my handkerchief and stood up. Blood had already soaked through half of the silk as I spread my palm open toward my father. I will not take over the management of the household. Liu Huaijin did not respond. He watched the blood dripping from my fingertips, his gaze slowly shifting to my face, where it lingered for a moment. That look was the same as it had always been, like he was looking at a little girl who had fallen down and was waiting for an adult to pick her up. The last time he had looked at me like that in my previous life, the Liu family estate had already been under seizure for 3 days. He sat in the prison cell of the Ministry of Justice and said, Yaohua, I always used to think your temperament was too flighty. Nonsense. His voice dropped, his brow furrowing deeply. Taking over the household management is the old matriarch's wish. Your eldest sister's marriage is being negotiated next month, and it is inappropriate for a girl in the midst of marriage talks to manage the domestic affairs, you know this. The ledgers and the warehouse keys are all ready. You need only accept them. Liu Yuyao set down her wine cup, dabbed the corners of her mouth with a handkerchief, and interjected. Father, my second sister is still young and perhaps feels a bit overwhelmed. If it is truly too difficult for her, I can take charge for a few days on her behalf. Once she has sorted out her thoughts and returns the responsibility, nothing will have been delayed. As she spoke, her eyelids were lowered, her long lashes casting a small patch of shadow beneath her eyes. Her voice was gentle and soft, like finely sifted sand. In my previous life, she had used this exact same tone to say, Sister, sign this first so you can withdraw silver from the storehouse. That promissory note bore the seal of the Marquis of Pinyang's estate for 3,000 taels of silver, with the signature written in my own hand. My mother's medicine was bought with that very money. Less than 2 hours after drinking it, she was coughing up blood. My elder sister is right, I followed her lead and replied. I am young, and I wouldn't be able to command authority over the estate's veterans. Once the account books are organized, they shall be sent to my sister's courtyard. Tomorrow, when the aunts of the clan come to inquire, we shall say that I am unwell and have entreated my sister for help. This way, appearances are maintained before outsiders. Liu Yuyao's handkerchief paused at her lips for a fleeting moment. Just a single moment. That is indeed a way to handle it. Liu Huaijin pondered for a moment, his fingertips tapping twice on the desk. Yuyao, you take charge of it for now, and we can switch back once Yaohua has gotten the hang of things. As for the gossiping mouths of other families, you'll have to silence them yourself. Liu Yuyao stood up and walked to my side, grasping my hand that was still dripping with blood. The sharp edges of the shattered jade pressed into her palm, yet she didn't even flinch, her voice remaining as soft and tender as water. Is the wound on your hand serious, second sister? I have some white jade skin regenerating ointment gifted from the palace. I'll have someone send it over to you later. Just rest easy and recover for a few days. Your elder sister will hold things down for you. The warmth of her palm seeped through the handkerchief. It was warm. On the night her mother coughed up blood in her previous life, her hands had also been warm. She had stood by the bedside, tears streaming down her face as she held her mother's hand, while the sachet hidden in her sleeve incessantly scattered pollen onto the bedding. "Thank you, eldest sister." I withdrew my hand. Suiping stood to the side, anxiously twisting the corner of her clothes, her lips trembling as if to speak, yet she remained silent. I knew what she wanted to say. The old madam had clearly designated the second young lady to take over the household management, so how had it been pushed into the eldest young lady's hands in the blink of an eye? But she was, after all, just a maid. There was no room for her to speak in such a setting. Liu Huaijin stood up and scanned the banquet table, his finger gesturing vaguely toward the dishes that had yet to be cleared. "Disperse. Yaohua, follow me to the study." Liu Yuyao returned to her seat, her kingfisher feather butterfly hairpins shimmering briefly under the candlelight. As I followed my father around the corridor toward the study, the sound of her instructing the maid drifted from behind us. "Carefully collect the second young lady's broken jade. Take it to the craftsman in the East Market later to see if it can be inlaid. If it truly cannot be repaired, the fragments must still be kept in a brocade box. After all, it is an heirloom passed down from the old madam." Her tone was gentle and warm, sounding exactly like a kind elder sister who truly cherished her younger sibling. The study door closed behind us. Liu Huaijin sat behind the desk. He did not order tea to be served, but instead tapped his fingers twice against the tabletop. "The door is closed, now tell me the truth." He looked at me. "What exactly is going on?" I stood before him, the blood on my fingertips already congealed into dark red scabs. It was just the two of us. The candlelight flickered, cutting the light and shadow across his face into shifting patches of brightness and dark. "Father, your daughter hasn't been sleeping well these past few days. If you can't sleep, you smash the family heirloom?" I had a nightmare. I looked down at my fingers, my voice leveling out. I dreamed of mother coughing up blood, of many people coming to the manor to carry things away, and of the day my eldest sister got married and I saw her to the door. The carriage curtain was lifted, and she smiled at me. Liu Huaijin's fingers remained motionless on the desk. It was just a dream. I wish it were just a dream too. I looked up. But I remember everything clearly every day when I wake up. Which day I dreamed of what, which day I woke up with a weight pressing on my chest, and which day the maid from my eldest sister's courtyard came to deliver pastries. What of it, if a maid from your eldest sister's courtyard came to deliver some pastries? I didn't eat them. Suiping took them away to be discarded, and the next day, 2 dead sparrows were found beneath the crabapple tree in the courtyard. The study fell silent for a moment. Liu Huaijin's gaze shifted from my face to the untouched plate of osmanthus cakes on the top right corner of the desk. Liu Yuyao had sent them over before the evening banquet. Beneath the plate lay a handkerchief she had embroidered herself, with a spray of magnolia stitched into the corner. He reached out and pushed the plate of osmanthus cakes aside. "Is that why you pushed the household management duties onto your eldest sister?" "I couldn't handle it," I said. Once the ledgers and warehouse keys changed hands, there were dozens of people in the manor to manage. I couldn't even tell which maidservant was close to which steward. Eldest sister is already engaged. If the power is in her hands, others will only say the eldest daughter of the Liu family is capable of managing a household, which will benefit her reputation for marriage. I am happy to let her have it. Liu Huaijin stared at me for a moment. The candle flame flickered again, and the vertical furrow between his brows relaxed half an inch before tightening once more. "Are you truly happy to do so?" "I would be truly delighted." He remained silent for a long while before reaching out to open a hidden compartment on the left side of the desk, taking out a palm-sized sandalwood box. The surface of the box was smooth and unadorned, with only a tiny lotus flower engraved on the clasp. "I originally intended to give this to you once you took over the management of the household," he said, pushing the wooden box toward me. "The old lady gave it to me last month, saying it should be opened on your 15th birthday. Since you've handed over the reins today, this still belongs to you. Take it back." I took it from him. The wooden box was not heavy in my hand, and it made no sound when shaken. A tiny copper key hung from the clasp. Its teeth were newly cut, with file marks still visible along the edges. "Does Mother know about this?" I asked. Liu Huaijin's hand paused briefly on the desk. "Your mother is not in good health. Do not trouble her with household matters during this time. Just let her rest in peace." I held the bronze key and did not move. Half a month before my mother passed away in my previous life, Liu Huaijin had said the exact same thing: do not trouble her with household matters. But back then, I had no idea what was happening in the manor. I only discovered that the account books had been tampered with from the Ministry of Justice's documents on the day our home was seized. "You are right, Father." I tucked the wooden box into my sleeve. "I shall take my leave now. As for the scar-removing ointment my eldest sister sent, use it or not, it's up to you." I turned to leave, and just as my hand touched the doorframe, I heard him speak from behind me. "Yaohua." I came to a halt, but did not look back. "The jade piece you dropped today," he said in a low voice. "How do you plan to answer if the old lady asks about it?" "I will simply tell the truth." "What truth?" That my hand slipped, and I failed to catch it. There was a brief silence behind me. Then, Liu Huaijin let out a soft hum, his tone making it impossible to tell whether he believed me or not. I pulled open the door and stepped out. The night wind rushed into my sleeves, making the spot where the red sandalwood box pressed against my wrist feel slightly chilled. Suibing was waiting at the corner of the corridor. Seeing me emerge, she hurried forward and asked in a hushed voice. "Second Miss, back at the banquet, why did you?" "We'll talk when we get back to the courtyard." Suibing shut her mouth and followed behind me. After a few steps, I heard a maid's voice announcing an arrival from the front courtyard. It sounded like Bizon, from Liu Yuyao's quarters, delivering something. Through the moon gate, Bizon's voice rang out crisp and clear, carrying a hint of smugness she couldn't quite hide. "The eldest miss has instructed that this white jade skin-regenerating ointment be delivered to the second miss immediately. She asks that the second miss rests well, and the eldest miss will come to visit you in person tomorrow morning." Behind me, Suibing pressed her lips tight and remained silent. I didn't slow my pace. The wooden box in my sleeve tapped lightly against my wrist bone as I walked. The copper key pressed against my fingertip. The texture of the lock teeth felt freshly cut, just as expected. "Is eldest sister coming over first thing tomorrow morning?" I asked. Suibing gave an affirmative hum. "Bizhan just said so. Did you not hear her, second miss?" I heard her. I turned the corner of the corridor. The lamplight from Liu Yuyao's courtyard filtered through the decorative wall, warm and glowing, shining as if nothing were amiss. "Go back and bring in that pot of herbs drying on the windowsill. When eldest sister arrives tomorrow morning, brew her some fresh tea." By the time Suibing brought in the pot of drying herbs from the windowsill, dusk had already fallen. "Second miss, these bletilla roots are already bone dry. Do they still need to be aired out?" "Put them in the cabinet." She bent down to place the herbs in the cabinet, her mouth never stopping. "The eldest Mrs. White Jade skin regenerating ointment is just sitting there on the table. I've smelled it. It has a strong scent of jasmine. But the wound on your hand clearly heals just fine with the bletilla powder we dried ourselves." That ointment she sent. Suibing. She closed her mouth and turned her head to look at me. "When Sister Mingri arrives, just serve the tea and keep your words to a minimum." I took the red sandalwood box from my sleeve and placed it by the pillow, inserting the bronze key into the keyhole without turning it immediately. "If she asks about this box, just say you don't know." Suibing's gaze lingered on the wooden box for a moment before she nodded and retreated to the outer room. The bronze key made almost no sound as it turned. The lock spring was finely crafted, as if it had just been oiled. The lid popped open to reveal a dark green velvet lining, in the center of which lay a silver bracelet about 2 fingers wide. The surface of the bracelet was plain, with only a line of tiny characters engraved near the clasp, which were too faint to read in the dim candlelight. I picked it up and held it close to the lamp. The 4 characters were Huaijin, written in small seal script. The curves of the strokes had been worn smooth, evidently from many years of wear. A folded piece of paper lay beneath the bracelet. The page had yellowed, its corners brittle. Unfolded, it revealed half a prescription. The handwriting was my mother's, and the dosage for the final herb had been circled in vermilion ink, with the word double noted beside it. The cinnabar color had faded to a pale brown, but the circle had been drawn with such force that the texture protruded from the back of the paper. I refolded the prescription and placed it back in the box, then slid the silver bracelet onto my left wrist. The opening fit perfectly just above the wrist bone, feeling slightly cool against my skin, with a curvature that seemed shaped by years of wear. Swiping. She lifted the curtain and entered. Go bolt the courtyard gate. Extinguish one of the lamps as well. Just leave the one on the desk. Swiping glanced at me but didn't ask why, turning to do as she was told. The sound of the door bolt dropping into its slot was exceptionally crisp in the night air. The flame of the lamp on the desk flickered as a draft caught the curtain, then steadied itself against the wall. I sat by the bed without moving. In my previous life, I had never seen this wooden box, nor these silver bracelets. During the days before my mother passed away, she was constantly drifting in and out of sleep. When she was conscious, few of her words were clear, save for one sentence I remember to this day. She gripped my hand and said, "The 3rd shelf in the cabinet." At the time, I thought she was just muddled and didn't take it seriously. Later, when the soldiers came to seize our property and turned the entire courtyard upside down, there was nothing in that 3rd shelf but a few old clothes. The cinnabar circle on the prescription, the one next to the word double, was drawn with extreme force. It was as if someone knew they had no chance to change that bowl of medicine and left their words on the paper, waiting for someone to see. Across a flower-covered wall, the laughter from Liu Yuyao's courtyard drifted over faintly. Bizon's voice was the brightest, her jubilance unmistakable even through the wall. Then, someone began to play the pipa. The tune was brisk, the most lively movement from spring in the jade pavilion. Swiping muttered something under her breath in the outer room. I didn't catch it, nor did I ask. Early the next morning, just as the sky was beginning to lighten, there was a knock at the courtyard gate. Swiping threw on a cloak to open the door. When she returned, her expression was grim, and she was carrying a food box in her hand. It was brought by Bizon from the eldest Miss's courtyard. She said the eldest Miss isn't feeling well and won't be able to make it this morning. She asks that you have breakfast on your own. The lid of the food container was lifted, revealing a plate of osmanthus cakes and a bowl of lotus seed soup. As usual, the plate rested atop a handkerchief embroidered with magnolias. Where is Bizon? She left right after dropping this off, saying she had to go back to attend to the eldest Miss's medicine. Swiping placed the food container on the table and took a half step back to look at me. Her lips moved slightly, but in the end, she didn't say a word. I reached out, took the plate of osmanthus cakes, and set it on the windowsill, placing it side by side with the herbs that had been drying since yesterday. The sweet fragrance of the osmanthus drifted out in wisps, mingling with the dry bitterness of the herbs, creating a somewhat jarring scent. The eldest Miss is unwell. As her younger sisters, we ought to pay her a visit. I stood up and washed my hands, placing the bowl of lotus seed soup back into the food container untouched. Swiping, go and get that bag of freshly dried tangerine peel from my cabinet. Swiping froze for a moment. Second Miss, over at the eldest Miss's place. We are going to see my sister. Liu Yuyao's courtyard was nearly double the size of mine. 2 flowering crabapple trees were planted in front of the main house. The blossoms had long since withered this season, leaving behind leaves of a heavy, deep green. Bizon, who was standing guard under the veranda, saw me enter. The smile on her face faltered for a moment before she managed to pin it back on. Second Miss has arrived. The eldest Miss has just taken her medicine and lain down. Perhaps you should come back. If my sister is ill and I, her younger sister, pass by her door without entering, what would people say? I didn't break my stride. Go inside and announce me. Tell her I've brought some dried tangerine peel. It will help take away the bitterness when steeped in water. Bizon stood her ground on the veranda, the smile on her face becoming increasingly strained. Second miss is most considerate, but the doctor said the eldest miss needs peace and quiet. Bizhan. Liu Yuyao's voice came from inside the room. Separated by a curtain, it sounded somewhat raspy, yet the trailing tone remained warm. Please invite second sister in. Bizhan stepped aside and lifted the curtain. The room was thick with the smell of medicine, mingled with a scent of jasmine that was identical to the fragrance of that jar of white jade skin regenerating ointment. Liu Yuyao leaned against the headboard, her hair unstyled and draped loosely over a moonwhite inner robe. Her face was indeed pale and her lips lacked color, giving her a somewhat sickly appearance. On the small side table by her hand sat a celadone bowl with a layer of dark brown medicinal dregs remaining at the bottom. Second sister is here. She looked up at me and smiled. I woke up this morning with a terrible dizziness and simply couldn't make it to your place. I'm sorry to have made you make the trip instead. Sister, please don't say such things. I sat down on the embroidered stool by the bed, while Suiping placed the package of dried tangerine peel on the small side table. What medicine are you taking? Has the manor's physician seen you yet? He has. He said I caught a chill from the cold weather these past few days. It's nothing serious. She reached out to tuck in the corner of her quilt, revealing a small portion of her fingertips. Her nails were trimmed very neatly and were perfectly clean. How is the injury on your hand, sister? Have you used that jar of skin regenerating ointment? I have. I watched her as she tucked the quilt in. Why is the smell of medicine so strong in your room? Is the prescription the doctor gave you very potent? Perhaps it's because your constitution is weak, sister, so the physician added 2 extra herbs to replenish your qi. She brushed it off nonchalantly, her gaze falling upon a silver bracelet peeking out from my cuff. She paused for a moment. I haven't seen this bracelet on you before. You weren't wearing it yesterday. I found it while rummaging through my vanity this morning. Perhaps mother gave it to me long ago and I simply forgot to wear it. I pulled my sleeve down to cover the bracelet. Since you are unwell, sister, you should rest properly. I won't disturb you further. Soak the dried tangerine peel in water and drink it 3 times a day. It helps suppress the bitterness of the medicinal soup. Liu Yuyao nodded, and Bizon stepped forward to see me out. I rose and took a couple of steps toward the door, then suddenly came to a halt. Oh, by the way, sister, it's best to steep the tangerine peel along with some bletilla root. Bletilla resolves phlegm while the peel regulates qi. Taking both alongside the physician's prescription will help prevent nausea. Liu Yuyao leaned against the headboard without moving, her hand beneath the quilt appearing to tighten for a brief moment. It was just a flicker, impossible to see clearly through the fabric. You understand such things, sister? I've flipped through a few medical books in my spare time. I turned back and smiled at her. Rest well, sister. As I left the courtyard, Bizon lowered the curtain behind me, her movements noticeably swifter than usual. Suiping followed me back, finally unable to contain herself as we reached the moon gate, asking in a hushed voice. Second miss, the smell of medicine in the eldest miss's room. MHM. And on the edge of the bed curtains, I thought I saw something stuck there, it looked pinkish. I didn't stop walking. Outside the moon gate, the sun had already risen, shining brightly on the bluestone pavement. In Liu Yuyao's courtyard, the leaves of the midget crabapple trees rustled in the wind for a moment. Pinkish. Suiping repeated it once more from behind, her voice lowered even further. Like pollen. The door to Liu Huaijin's study was not fully closed. Standing under the corridor, I watched him through the crack in the door. He stood with his back to the entrance, clutching a piece of paper, his thumb rubbing repeatedly against its edge. He had a habit of doing this whenever he was nervous or indecisive. On the day the decree to seize his estate was handed to him in our previous life, he had rubbed half the paper to shreds, his fingers covered in paper debris. Father. He didn't look back. The writing on the paper showed through from the back, and he could tell it was Liu Yuyao's handwriting. She wrote with more force than most people, always leaving indentations on the back of the page. Your eldest sister fainted this morning. Liu Huaijin flipped the paper over, face down on the table, before turning around. His expression was grim, the corners of his mouth pulled downward, but his voice remained relatively steady. The manor physician has examined her and said she ingested something by mistake. A maid from your sister's courtyard mentioned that you sent over a package of dried tangerine peel yesterday? What I sent was indeed dried tangerine peel. I stood by the threshold without entering. Dried and sliced bletilla root, steeped together with the peel, regulates qi and resolves phlegm. If the physician does not believe it, he is welcome to test it. Liu Huaijin stared at me for a moment, then raised his hand to rub the space between his eyebrows. The physician has already tested it. There is nothing wrong with the tangerine peel. He flipped the paper back over. But your sister vomited less than half an hour after drinking that tea, and there were streaks of blood in what she brought up. Bizon knelt before me weeping, saying that when the second young lady left yesterday, she muttered something about tangerine peel paired with bletilla, and it was only after the eldest young lady drank it that this happened. What exactly did Bizon say? Liu Huaijin paused for a moment. She said you told her yourself, steep dried tangerine peel with bletilla. Your sister only had the bletilla roots boiled because she listened to you. I stood at the door, motionless. The wind from the corridor rushed in through the crack in the door, causing the corners of the paper on the desk to flutter slightly. Father, bletilla root is non-toxic. It is even less toxic when paired with tangerine peel. The manor physician tested the tangerine peel and found nothing wrong, but what about the bletilla? Liu Huaijin did not respond. He turned around and picked up another small dish from the corner of the desk. At the bottom of the dish lay several slices of prepared medicinal herbs, yellowish-white with dry cross-sections. The manor physician took it for testing and said the bletilla root had been adulterated. He brought the dish over and placed it in front of me. Smell it. I lowered my head. Tucked among the bletilla slices were fragments almost invisible to the naked eye, their color slightly darker than the bletilla itself. They were mixed into the cross-sections so thoroughly that one had to get very close to discern the difference. As I brought my nose to it, there was an extremely faint scent, sweetish and barely noticeable. What was it mixed with? The estate physician said it appeared to be pollen. Liu Huaijin withdrew the saucer. Dry pollen, ground into powder and mixed into the slices. It doesn't release when steeped in water, but once ingested, the stomach cannot bear it. Your sister's constitution was already frail, and coupled with her lingering cold. He paused for a moment, looking at me. Yaohua, where did that bag of bletilla come from? I dried it myself. That patch of bletilla in the corner of the courtyard was planted after Mother fell ill the year before last. I dried it and kept it in the cabinet. If Father does not believe me, you may go to my courtyard and see for yourself. The roots are still in the ground, not yet fully harvested. Liu Huaijin tapped his fingers twice on the edge of the saucer. The old servant from your sister's courtyard said that yesterday, after Bizon delivered the scar-removing ointment to your courtyard and returned, your sister sent someone to the storehouse to fetch some bletilla. When your sister asked where the bletilla came from, Bizon said, the second young lady has planted a lot of it in the corner of her courtyard and dried it herself, which is why your sister had someone take it to brew tea. I nodded. So, it was the bletilla I planted, the bletilla I dried, and I personally told my sister it could be drunk with dried tangerine peel. Did Bizon say anything else? Liu Huaijin's hand stopped on the edge of the saucer. Such as? For instance, that when I went to my sister's room yesterday, I noticed the scent of jasmine was heavy. Or that when I sat down, I saw medicinal dregs at the bottom of the celadone bowl by my sister's hand, with a ring of pink residue smeared around the rim. Or perhaps that I saw flower pollen clinging to the corners of my sister's bed curtains, looking much like the fragments mixed into this saucer. The study fell silent for a moment. Liu Huaijin looked down at the sliced bletilla on the plate, then looked up at me. The vertical furrow between his brows relaxed slightly, tightened again, and then relaxed once more. You already went there yesterday? I went early yesterday morning. Sister said she wasn't feeling well, so I brought some dried tangerine peel to visit her. The medicine residue and the pollen. I came out after speaking with sister for a while. Bizon escorted me out of the courtyard. I looked into his eyes. Father, the scent of the pollen in sister's room is identical to the scent mixed into this dish. My nose is quite keen. Liu Huaijin remained silent for a long time, picking up the piece of paper in his hand to read it twice more. The indentations on the back of the paper bled through, revealing a few legible words: chest tightness, vomiting blood, your daughter has failed you. He set the paper down and spoke in a different voice, one that was deeper and heavier than before. Your sister still cannot get out of bed. I have ordered the maids and elderly servants in her courtyard to be kept under watch for now, until the matter is fully investigated. He glanced at me. Go back to your courtyard and stay put for the next few days. Regarding the account books, proceed as you suggested yesterday, let your sister's side hold on to them for now. Everything else will wait until the old madam leaves the ancestral hall. I understand, father. I turned to leave, and the silver bracelet on my wrist peeked out from my sleeve. The characters engraved on its surface caught a flash of light filtering through the crack in the door. Wait. I stopped in my tracks. Where did you get that bracelet? Liu Huaijin's gaze fell upon my wrist. I don't believe I've seen it before. Mother gave it to me. It had been tucked away in a box, and I only happened to find it yesterday. Liu Huaijin said nothing more, merely waving his hand to dismiss me. I pulled the study door shut, and at the very moment the panels met, I heard him let out a long, heavy sigh from within. Suibing was waiting under the corridor and hurried to meet me as soon as I emerged. She lowered her voice, whispering, the eldest miss has been causing a stir in her courtyard again. Bizon just went to the front courtyard in tears. I gave her a dismissive wave, and she immediately fell silent. On the way back to the courtyard, as I turned past the moon gate, I ran straight into Uncle Chin, the manor's housekeeper. He was holding a blue cloth bundle and stepped aside to let me pass. Second young mistress. Uncle Chin, what is in that bundle? The old madam had someone bring this back from the ancestral hall. Uncle Chin bowed slightly. Just now, Nanny Hui came from the old madam's side with a message. She said the old madam heard about the eldest young mistress's situation and instructed that this casket be delivered to your courtyard. The blue cloth bundle was handed to me. It wasn't heavy, and to the touch, it felt square and firm, like a small wooden box. Uncle Chin took his leave after delivering it, while Suiping craned her neck for a peek before quickly drawing back. How did the old madam find out as well? With such a major incident occurring in the manor, Nanny Hui isn't deaf. I carried the bundle in my hands as I walked back. A faint scent of sandalwood drifted intermittently from the direction of the ancestral hall, carried by the oncoming wind. Suiping followed a few steps behind me, unable to resist asking, second miss, regarding the eldest miss from now on. Someone will naturally investigate later. I pushed open the courtyard gate and walked in. Suiping, bring me the rest of that bag of bletilla roots, and then go to the storehouse to find a few things. What things? The jasmine-scented powder used in the muscle-regenerating ointment, some magnolia pollen, and that box of osmanthus hair oil gifted by the palace last mid-autumn festival. I placed the blue cloth bundle on the table and opened it. Inside was indeed a small wooden box plain with black lacquer, its latch pierced by an unpolished peachwood hairpin. These items all have scents. We'll mix them together for people to smell. Suaping stood at the doorway, dazed for a moment before uttering an "oh" and turning to carry out the task. I opened the black lacquered wooden box. Inside, there were no silver bracelets or prescriptions, only a thin layer of white silk. Resting upon the silk was a red string threaded through a hole. Tied to the middle of the string was a tiny jade gourd, no larger than a seed, translucent white and warm to the touch. Right in the center of the gourd's belly was a hairline fracture, as if it had once been shattered and then pieced back together. A slip of paper was pressed against the silk. It bore no signature, only 4 words. Keep it for yourself. Before I could snap the black lacquered box shut, Suaping lifted the curtain and stepped inside. Second miss, everyone has gathered in the main hall of the front courtyard. Uncle Chin just came by to deliver a message, saying that people from the Marquis of Pingyang's manor have arrived. My fingertips didn't loosen their grip on the red string of the jade gourd. A fine crack on the gourd's belly revealed a faint trace in the light. It had been broken and then pieced back together, the seam worn smooth as if it had been worn for a very, very long time. Who is it that has come? According to Uncle Chin, it is the second young master of the Marquis of Pingyang's manor, accompanied by 2 attendants. The eldest miss has already headed over, supported by Bizon. I placed the jade gourd back onto the red string and returned it to the box, closing the lid. Suaping, is that moon-white cloud-patterned jacket still in my wardrobe? Yes, it is. Put it on. The doors to the main hall and the front courtyard stood open. Liu Huaijin sat in the seat of honor, the teacup by his hand untouched. Seated opposite him in the guest chair was a young man in his 20s, wearing a stone blue Hangzhou silk robe. His belt was neatly fastened, his features were regular, and a faint smile played on his lips. He smiled exactly as he had in their previous life, eyes curving in a way that looked refined and polite. Yet he was too polite, so much so that it felt as if the person sitting across from him wasn't the master of the Liu family, but some random street vendor. Zhao Linan, the second son of the Marquis of Pingyang. In my previous life, it was also this man who came to propose marriage, presenting the betrothal gifts on behalf of the heir to the Marquis of Pingyang, Zhao Linyuan. Back then, he wore the same refined and gentle smile as he placed the wild geese and other bridal gifts on the table, saying, "The Marquis and the heir admire the upright character of the eldest Miss Liu, and have specially sent me to request her hand in marriage." I was standing behind the screen peeking at the time, thinking that this second son spoke so pleasantly and had such a handsome smile. Later, Zhao Linyuan became my brother-in-law, and Zhao Linan delivered a secret letter to the Ministry of Justice stating that Liu Yaohua, the second daughter of the Shen family, forged official seals and illicitly borrowed 3,000 taels of government silver, attaching a copy of the loan agreement at the end of the letter. It was only then that I realized Zhao Linan was even more ruthless than Zhao Linyuan. At most, Zhao Linyuan was indifferent and neglectful, but Zhao Linan was the one who personally sharpened the blade and handed it over. "Uncle Liu." Zhao Linan stood up and cupped his hands in a polite greeting, his smile unchanging. "I have taken the liberty of visiting to deliver a letter on behalf of my elder brother." He drew a gold-flecked envelope from his sleeve and presented it with both hands. "My brother heard that the eldest young lady of your household has been unwell lately and is quite concerned. He specifically instructed me to bring his regards, along with some tonics that have already been delivered to the rear courtyard." Liu Huaijin took the envelope without opening it, placed it by his side, and gave a slight nod of his chin. "I appreciate the Marquis's concern. Yuyao merely has a cold. She will be fine after a few days of rest." He glanced at me, his gaze lingering for a moment. "This is my daughter Yaohua, Yuyao's younger sister." Zhao Linan turned toward me, his gaze sweeping over my face. His smile faded slightly, though the corners of his mouth remained curved. When he looked at people, his eyes seemed thin and distant, as if he were viewing things through a layer of gauze. "So it is the second miss. I am Zhao Linan. Second young master Zhao." I returned the greeting, my voice soft. "My sister heard of your arrival and is currently dressing. She will be here shortly." Zhao Linan nodded and sat back down, picking up his teacup. His grip on the cup was steady, with 3 fingers hooked around the rim while his thumb and index finger avoided touching the porcelain, a habit unique to those who have spent years holding a brush. In my previous life, his hand was likely just as steady when he wrote that secret letter. Stroke by stroke, he had written the 3 characters of Liu Yaohua with perfect, upright precision. It is truly rare to see such deep sisterly affection between the second miss and the eldest miss. Zhao Linen took a sip of tea and set down the cup. I heard from Baizan just now that the eldest miss began feeling unwell after drinking tea the day before yesterday. Before I could speak, Lu Huaijin cut in. The manor's physician has already examined her. It is nothing serious. That is good to hear. Zhao Linen smiled slightly. My elder brother has been restless at the Marquis' manor. Had he not been tied down by court affairs, he would have paid a visit in person today. He asked me to inquire on his behalf, what medicine has the eldest miss been taking? Has the cause of the illness been identified? Lu Huaijin tapped his finger against the rim of the teacup lid. It has been cleared up. The medicinal ingredients used were mixed with pollen, and it just so happened that the eldest miss has an aversion to pollen, which triggered the symptoms. The smile on Zhao Linen's face remained unchanged, but the hand holding the teacup retracted half an inch. Pollen? That is quite an uncommon cause. There are many people in the residence. Perhaps flowers from one of the courtyards drifted in. Perhaps so. Lu Huaijin picked up the gold-dusted envelope and broke the seal. He withdrew a sheet of gold-flecked paper, unfolded it, and scanned it briefly, his brow twitching slightly. The curtain rustled. Supported by Bizan, Liu Yuyao emerged from behind the screen, wearing a lotus root-colored baize embroidered with sprigs of flowers. Her hair was neatly styled, adorned with that kingfisher feather butterfly buyao. Her face remained pale, but a touch of rouge on her lips made her look more spirited than when she had left earlier. Second young master Zhao. She performed a graceful salute, her voice as soft as if it were soaked in honeyed water. I am truly overwhelmed that you and the heir apparent have been so concerned for me. Zhao Linen stood up to return the gesture. Liu Yuyao sat down opposite him, her skirt spreading across the edge of the embroidered stool in a deliberate, unhurried motion. As she sat, her sleeve slid back slightly, revealing the white jade bracelet on her wrist. There was a small chip near the thumb area of the bracelet, looking as though it had been knocked against something. I recognized that chip. In my previous life, on the night before her wedding, she had dropped a teacup in my room, and the white jade bracelet had chipped against the corner of the table. At the time, she said, "It doesn't matter, I'll get new ones once I'm married." The next day, when the sedan chair from the Marquis of Pingyang's estate arrived at the door, she had replaced it with a pair of emerald bracelets. You look to be in good spirits, eldest miss, Zhao Linen said as he resumed his seat. My elder brother will be relieved to see it. Liu Yuyao dabbed the corners of her mouth with a handkerchief and lowered her head with a smile. The manor physician said it was pollen in the medicine that triggered the coughing fit, but the underlying cause has been cleared. The heir apparent is occupied with many affairs, yet he still keeps such a small matter in mind. I truly feel quite uneasy about it. You are too kind, eldest miss. My brother's intention is, Zhao Linen took another brocade box from his sleeve and placed it on the table. The box was carved with interlocking lotus patterns, and when opened, it revealed a pair of pure gold hairpins set with gems in the shape of twin flowers on a single stalk. If your health has fully recovered, he will invite the official matchmakers to visit at the end of the month. This is a small token of my brother's regard, to serve as a pledge of our engagement. The entire hall fell silent for a moment. Lu Huaijin set down the teacup in his hand, the lid hitting the rim with a faint, sharp clink. Second young master Zhao, this matter. Father, I spoke up, interrupting him. My voice wasn't loud, but in the quiet hall, every word rang out clearly. I have a few words I would like to say to second young master Zhao in private. Lu Huaijin turned to look at me. Zhao Linen also turned his head, the slight smile at the corner of his mouth pressing down a fraction. If the second miss has something to say, please, feel free to speak. A few private words. I smiled at him. Sister has just recovered and shouldn't sit for too long. Father, please accompany her back to her courtyard to rest. Once I've finished speaking, I will see second young master Zhao out. The handkerchief in Liu Yuyao's hand paused for a moment. She looked at me, and beneath the gentle smile in her almond-shaped eyes something surfaced and was immediately suppressed, moving as swiftly as a shadow skimming across the water. Sister. Your health is what matters most, sister. I turned my head to look at Zhao Linen. Second young master Zhao, this way, please. He stood up. I turned and walked toward the side hall at a moderate pace, hearing Zhao Linen's footsteps following behind me, maintaining a distance of 2 paces. As we turned past the festooned gate, I tilted my head slightly. Second young master Zhao just mentioned inviting the official matchmaker at the end of the month. Yes. Then, when my elder sister marries into your family, has the dowry list been prepared? Zhao Linen paused for a moment. That is for Uncle Liu to decide. And what about the gift you prepared for the heir on his behalf? I turned back to look at him. The 3,000 taels of silver written on the promissory note, do you intend for that to come out of the betrothal gifts, or be deducted from my sister's dowry? The smile on Zhao Linen's face finally vanished completely. He stood in the center of the side hall. Once that layer of pleasantry had been stripped away, the face beneath looked somewhat younger than before, and considerably colder. Second miss, whatever could you mean by that? It doesn't matter where I begin. I walked over to the chair by the window and sat down, resting my hand on the armrest. The silver bracelet at my cuff was revealed, the 4 characters Huaijin etched onto its surface facing directly into his line of sight. What matters is where the loan agreement is now. Zhao Linen didn't move, nor did he speak. He stood there for about 7 or 8 breaths, eyes downcast as if deep in thought. When he finally looked up again, the corners of his mouth curled back up slightly. If the second miss has evidence, you might as well produce it. If not, I have it. I looked at him. He looked back at me. I was just wondering if the 2 twin flower hairpins second young master Zhao brought today are a pair or just a single piece. The muscle at the corner of Zhao Linen's eye twitched ever so slightly. Hairpins naturally come in pairs. Why is there a bead missing? I glanced at the brocade box by his hand. The stamen of the twin lotus should be inlaid with pearls, but the one in your box is set with lapis lazuli. By swapping pearls for lapis lazuli, the weight is off by 30%, someone who isn't an expert wouldn't be able to tell at all. You are handling affairs for the heir. Does he know you're even swapping out the jewels and the betrothal gifts? Zhao Linen placed his hand on the lid of the brocade box, 3 fingers gripping the edge while his thumb and index finger remained suspended in the air as before. He looked down at the pair of flower hairpins inside the box. The twin lotus inlaid with lapis lazuli emitted a faint eerie blue glow under the light. You have a keen eye, second miss. My elder sister told me. He looked up at me. The day before yesterday, my sister was feeling unwell. When I spoke with her, I mentioned the second young master Zhao. She said that he is most meticulous in his work, so much so that he insists on personally reviewing the Marquis' betrothal gift list to ensure everything is in order. I leaned back against the chair. As she said this, she was drinking her medicine. Pollen was floating in the bowl, and a ring of powder was smeared around the rim. Between sips, she told me that the second young master is truly loyal to the heir, even going so far as to save the heir the cost of the pearls on the floral hairpins. Zhao Linen's hand moved away from the lid of the box, dropping to his side. The eldest miss told you that? My sister told me many things. I toyed with the silver bracelet on my wrist. She also said that when the second young master drafted the promissory note for the heir, his hand was exceptionally steady, the words 3,000 taels looked as if they had been printed. When she said this, her tone was so proud, as if she were the one who had saved the heir all that money. The side hall fell silent for a long time. Zhao Linen stood there motionless, his refined face devoid of any expression, clean and blank like a sheet of xian paper that had yet to meet a brush. Then he leaned down and closed the brocade box once more. "Second miss, you called me here today to talk. What is it you wish to say?" "I would like to make a deal with you, my lord." "What kind of deal?" "I will not interfere with my sister marrying into the Marquis' manor. However, the 3,000 tael debt the manor owes the Liu family, regardless of whose hands the promissory note is in, must be burned. From now on, I will act as if I know nothing of the dealings between the Liu family and the Marquis' manor." Zhao Linen narrowed his eyes. "What you mean, second miss, is that your sister will marry in, but the debt will be wiped clean. For the Marquis' manor, this means gaining an in-law for free while saving 3,000 taels. For you, young master, the 3,000 taels saved won't need to go through the Marquis mansion's accounts." Something flickered in Zhao Linen's thin eyes. "You are merely trying to excuse yourself, second miss." "I am saving you trouble," I said, standing up as my silver bracelet struck the armrest of the chair with a soft clink. "After my sister marries into your family, if the Marquis mansion ever decides to make an issue of those 3,000 taels, your handiwork will be uncovered sooner or later. The heir apparent may not concern himself with such matters, but the Marquis is still very much in charge. If the Marquis finds out his own son used a debt bond to coerce a daughter of his in-laws, do you think he will praise your cleverness, or break your legs?" Zhao Linen fell silent. He stood there looking at me, his gaze shifting from my face to the silver bracelet on my wrist, then back to my face. He did this twice, as if weighing something. "Aren't you afraid I'll go and confront the eldest miss about what you've said today?" "Go ahead, young master." I pushed open the door to the side hall. Sunlight streamed in from outside, falling upon the bluestone ground just before the threshold. "My sister is waiting for you to head over." Zhao Linen walked out of the side hall with steps significantly slower than when he had arrived. He shifted the brocade box to his other hand, and his thumb, which usually hovered in the air, finally rested on the surface of the box, his fingertip pressing against the lapis lazuli inlaid twin lotus. Liu Yuyao was still sitting in the main hall. Bizan stood behind her, holding a fresh cup of hot tea. Liu Huaijin had not left either. He sat in the seat of honor, the tea before him having already gone stone cold. "Second young master Zhao." Seeing Zhao Linen emerge, a gentle smile surfaced on Liu Yuyao's face. "What private words did my sister share with you?" Zhao Linen came to a halt. He glanced back at me, a look that was a fraction thinner than before, but the corners of his mouth curved upward once again. "The second young lady asked me if she could visit frequently if her elder sister were to marry into the Marquis' manor." He turned back and smiled at Liu Yuyao. "I have agreed on my brother's behalf. With such deep sisterly affection, it is only natural to visit each other often." Liu Yuyao's smile faltered for a brief moment, but she recovered quickly, letting out a soft laugh behind her handkerchief. "My younger sister has always been so clingy. If you don't want me to be clingy, sister, then I shall simply visit less often in the future." Liu Yuyao's gaze lingered on my face for a moment. There was something in that look identical to the way she had smiled at me when she lifted the curtain of the wedding sedan in my previous life. But at this moment, she had not yet entered the sedan, and that chipped white jade bracelet was still resting on her wrist. "What are you saying, sister?" She reached out to pull me closer, her fingertips icy cold. "I would wish for nothing more than for you to visit every day." I let her pull me. Zhao Linen took his leave and stepped out. Uncle Chen escorted him to the front courtyard gate, their footsteps gradually fading away across the bluestone floor. Liu Huaijin rose from the main seat and walked over to Liu Yuyao and me. He looked at our joined hands, then at the white jade bracelet on Liu Yuyao's wrist, and finally at the silver bracelet peeking out from my sleeve. "Yuyao, go back to your courtyard and rest." Liu Yuyao released my hand, curtsied, and left. Bizan followed behind her, casting a glance back at me as she reached the doorway. That look was filled with confusion, as if she couldn't fathom how today's ordeal had ended up being resolved this way. Only Liu Huaijin and I remained in the main hall. He stood before me, looking down at my wrist. "What is inscribed on the inside of that silver bracelet of yours?" I flipped my wrist. Sure enough, there were words engraved on the inside of the silver bracelet, even smaller than the 4 characters on the outside. Only by bringing it close could I see them clearly. 5 words: "Do not forget the paper in the cabinet." Liu Huaijin closed his eyes for a moment. "Your mother gave this to you?" "Yes," I looked up at him. "Mother tucked it into a red sandalwood box for me." Inside the box, there was also a prescription. One of the medicinal dosages was circled in cinnabar, the marks pressed very deep. Liu Huaijin opened his eyes. He looked at my face for a long time before reaching out to pat my shoulder. His hand was heavy, and the weight of that pat felt leaden as it landed on my shoulder. "When the official matchmaker from the Marquis of Pingyang's manor arrives at the end of the month," he said, "you shall review your sister's dowry list with me." At the end of the first lunar month, the official matchmaker from the Marquis of Pingyang's manor arrived at our door. Liu Yuyao sat on the east side of the main hall. Today, she wore a crimson baize, the floral medallions embroidered with gold thread shimmering under the candlelight. She had changed into a pair of jade bracelets on her wrists, but the kingfisher feather butterfly buyao pinned in her hair was still the one I had given her. The official matchmaker finished reading the list of betrothal gifts. Liu Yuyao listened with downcast eyes, a faint smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Zhao Linen sat in the guest seat opposite her, a new brocade box carved with interlocking lotus patterns resting by his hand. The dowry list was spread out on the table, and Liu Huaijin sat to one side in silence. I stood beside him, my fingertips tracing line by line across the paper. Silks and satins, furniture and utensils, silver for the bottom of the trunks, every line was clear and straightforward, with no hidden pages or attached deeds. "Uncle Liu," Zhao Linen stood up and cupped his hands in a respectful salute. "Now that the reading of the betrothal gift list is complete, I shall offer a cup of tea to you on behalf of my elder brother." Liu Huaijin picked up his teacup, and Zhao Linen did the same. The two gestured to each other from across the room and each took a sip. Liu Yuyao stood up, walked to my side, and whispered a sentence in a voice only the two of us could hear. "Why is my younger sister so quiet today?" "Congratulations, sister." I smiled at her. "I can drink this cup of tea from you with a peaceful heart." She looked at me. The wings of that kingfisher feather butterfly hair ornament trembled slightly by her temple, like a butterfly trapped at the edge of a cage, wanting to fly but having nowhere to go. I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me came the soft, hushed tones of Liu Yuyao speaking with the official matchmaker, gentle and smooth, like sifted sand. Sunlight streamed in from outside, falling upon the bluestone ground just before the threshold. The silver bracelet on my wrist pressed against my skin, slightly cool. The jade gourd hung from a red string, tucked inside my collar. The fine crack on its belly tapped lightly against my collarbone with every step, not painful, but itchy, as if someone were trying to remind me of something. The cluster of hyacinth orchids in the corner of the courtyard wall had already withered. New shoots wouldn't sprout until spring, but the soil remained, and the roots remained. Once dried and stored in a cabinet, they could still be used next year. Cui Bing was waiting by the moon gate. Seeing me come out, she stomped her chilled feet and followed after me. "Second miss, are you still drying the herbs tomorrow?" "Yes." I turned the corner of the corridor. The leaves of the flowering crabapple in Liu Yuyao's courtyard had mostly fallen, leaving bare branches stretching toward the ashen sky. "Take that bag of magnolia pollen out of the storehouse to dry as well." Cui Bing froze for a moment. "Magnolia pollen? But isn't that from the eldest Mrs. courtyard? Dry it and pack it into new handkerchiefs." I didn't stop walking. "I'll give it to my sister when she returns home for her visit next year." The sound of firecrackers drifted in from outside the courtyard walls, signaling the arrival of the betrothal gifts at the front gate. The crackling explosions burst through the dry winter air, sounding exceptionally festive and lively. The story ends here. Thank you all for your company, and see you in the next one.